Let me start this post out by saying I've never been a super attractive girl. I'm pretty overweight and tomboyish, so I never got much in the way of catcalls or any attention from men, which is totally fine. I prefer girls anyway. This week something changed. Something is really freaking weird. I look exactly the same as I did last week, wear the same clothes, weigh the same, but something's different. Within the last week, I've gotten the most unwanted attention I've ever had in my entire life combined. On Facebook, I started getting so many friend requests that I had to turn them off, and they are still coming through. I messaged a few of the people wondering where they found me, why they added me, and all they responded by saying was that they found me in their suggested friends and thought I looked cool. Which is normal if only 1 or 2 people did it. I got hundreds. An excessive amount. You would think I just had a popular post or something, but no, all just coincidences. The second thing is people are giving me free things randomly now. I'm a delivery driver for DoorDash, and now at every restaurant I've gone to, they have given me free food and drinks, and I'm heavily flirted with. Asked what time I'm off, if I can hang around for a minute, etc. Today, I also had someone take my phone and text their number from it, so they had mine. My ex-boss reached out saying he had a thing for me. Someone followed me into a store and complimented my hair. I know I shouldn't complain because nobody's being mean to me, but this is really, really freaking weird, isn't it? It's literally out of nowhere. Last week things were totally different. I also walked into a Five Guys and everyone smiled, and one guy said, "That's my girl." And I, don't even know his name. It's crazy weird. What do you guys think it could be? I have 3. The first one, I was driving home from the grocery store and I see this guy walking across his yard towards the road. He's heading for one of those grey electrical boxes that services several houses, the kind that are about 2 feet high and 1.5 feet wide. It's right next to the road. I'm watching him because he's going to reach the road right as I'm going past. Right as he reaches the box, he kind of hunkers down behind it and disappears. My only thought is there must be a hole dug behind the box for a full-grown man to disappear behind it. My eyes never leave the box from the time the man disappears behind it until I have passed it and could get a clear view of the other side. There's no hole and no man. I've watched a perfectly ordinary person walk behind an electrical box and disappear. For the second one, I lived in a marina across the street from a commercial shipping dock. Semi-trucks would come all hours of the day and night to drop off and or pick up shipping containers. As a result, the street leading out to the dock was very congested. When the weather was nice, employees of the dock would walk or cycle to work so they wouldn't have to deal with the traffic. About halfway down this street was an open field where I and other people would walk our dogs. One day I'm letting them run and look up to see a man in a white hoodie riding his bike away from the dock. Nothing strange about this, but my Doberman puppy was at the stage where she had no idea how strong she was, so I lunged forward to grab her collar so she doesn't jump up on this guy and knock him off his bike. She hadn't noticed him, which I thought was weird. But when I look up again, this dude is gone. It was one of the rare instances where there weren't trucks lining the road, but there was a train across the street. If someone had stopped and given him a ride, they'd still be putting his bike in the trunk. If he got a wild hair and decided to cross the train tracks, he'd still be wrestling his bike across the couplers. It happened as quick as notice dude, looks down, grabs dog, looks up, dude's gone. The third one really takes the cake, as this time it was a whole freight train. At the time I was living in Illinois, about 100 miles south of Chicago. It's flat and rural, and the train tracks, which are everywhere, are very straight. The trains run fast because they're heading to the depot in Chicago. I'm driving up Highway 41 towards home, and look over to see a freight train running right alongside the highway. It's blowing smoke and chugging along at least 70 miles an hour. I think, I didn't know there were train tracks there. Then the train disappears behind a grove of trees. I have enough time to think, wait, my street is coming up and it doesn't have train tracks. That train is going to derail if it tries to turn at that speed. And I look over and nothing is coming out from behind the trees. I actually turned around and went back and looked. There were no tracks where I'd seen the train. In 1996, I went to boot camp for the US Navy, Great Lakes. It was a great experience. So there were maybe 60 of us recruits left after they cleaned house. Positive drug tests, background checks and such. We were 2 weeks in. So all of us recruits had done a great job during our practices and we were rewarded with punch and cookies. It was a Tuesday night. That night we went to sleep and the next morning it was Thursday. Anyone else serve in our military and have this type of experience? When I realised it was Thursday and we had somehow missed a day, I eventually noticed 2 other recruits that seemed confused, so I confronted them to ask about a missing day. Both of them agreed that Wednesday never happened, but within a week, neither of them knew what I was talking about. So this happened probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I got off work and wanted a beer, but noticed I hadn't put any in the fridge the night before. I figured I'd just throw one in the freezer and grab it in an hour or so. Naturally, time passes by and I completely forget that I put the beer in the freezer until later that night. Probably a good 4 or 5 hours later. I take the beer out and just put it in the sink and accept defeat. Later on the same night, I go to squeeze the can to see if it exploded or if I can still keep it. Unfortunately, the can had a ton of give to it, clearly meaning it did explode. Fast forward to the next morning. The beer is still in the sink, and I go to grab it so I can empty it and throw out the can. But when I picked it up, it was sealed. The can never exploded. I questioned my girlfriend and she swore up and down that she was not messing with me and never switched out the cans. She doesn't ever pull little pranks like that, so I wasn't really convinced it was her anyway. It seems minor, I know, but it was just so strange because I remember the can 100% was exploded the night before. I really don't have an explanation for this. I believe it was in the beginning of May that this happened. My mum and I decided to drive without having a particular destination in mind. We ended up in a nice clearing and decided to go on a hike. Eventually we finished and turned around and went back down the road we were on. Before we found the clearing, we saw a little forest called Whispering Pines. I looked it up and it was a nice camping spot. We had planned on checking it out on the way home, which we did. We went in and found a neighbourhood, not camping grounds. Turns out I was looking at some place in Missouri. I live in Colorado. When we left, we saw a motorcyclist crash into a car and shatter his skull on the road. There was not a chance that he survived. He was bleeding out with leaking out of his nose. Keep in mind that the accident happened directly in front of the neighbourhood where the street and the main road met. My mum is a medical employee, a CNA to be exact. Because of this, she immediately reacted on instinct and tried to stabilise him. And coincidentally, there were 3 other medical employees on the spot. I called 911 and it took them over 10 minutes to arrive. 2 ambulances, a fire truck and 5 police cars should take less than 5 minutes. He started dying 2 minutes after he crashed. What gets me about this whole thing is that there were 4 medical employees total, all right near each other. On the right side of the road, it was my mum and the person behind her. And then on the left side, it was 2 more employees, also back to back. That's a glitch if I've ever seen one. What irks me even more is the fact that yesterday, I drove down that road twice, and both times, that spot was just gone. We paid attention to our landmarks, an old Victorian house we call Haunted House, the Whispering Pines neighbourhood and the clearing we hiked on. The neighbourhood was right in between those 2 landmarks and now it's gone. The road is a country road, so there's no outlets or twists and turns. It's just a straight road. We couldn't have gone around it or anything. It's simply gone. I can't even find it on maps. I'm a Muslim, and for us it's currently the holy month of Ramadan, where we fast from before dawn till sunset. The last 10 days of Ramadan are considered to be very sacred, and we worship God a lot in these last 10 days. So it was around 11 p.m. In Islam, God has 99 names, and I was reciting each of them 333 times. It's by personal choice, until 11:45. I had done so far 7 names, and then I got hungry and ate some leftover pasta from the fridge, and ate it while I was using Instagram. After I finish, I get back to reciting. But when I look at the time, it's 11:44 p.m. I obviously freaked out, and I checked the other clocks in my house to confirm the time was indeed 11:44. So I was reciting God's name. I stopped at 11:45, ate for 20 minutes, and came back to see the time had not gone forward. Instead it went back by 1 minute. I just woke up to the sound of a bird's wings beating, and there was a starling flying around my room, butting against the glass of the skylight. So I ran to the other window and threw open the curtains. To my surprise, it was closed, with even the screw clasp up top closed. Once I had both windows open, it perched on my bookcase and peeped a raspy call, hopped around a bit, and eventually flew away. My room is on the top floor, but there's no chimney or holes in the roof. I finally understand how mind-bending it is to experience a glitch in the Matrix. This happened to me some time ago. I thought it was a single event that happened to me only. It's so scary when time screws up, and to this day it scares me what happened. It's not really too crazy, besides the fact I witnessed the same minute twice. I had gotten into the shower and texted my girlfriend. It's 9:05 p.m. A little time passes, 7 minutes to be exact, and I finish washing my hair and pick up my phone to text her back, assuming she'd replied. She replied 7 minutes ago, and it's now 9:05. I literally feel my stomach drop to the floor, and my pulse skyrockets, and I honestly almost took a dirt nap in the shower. I've been face to face with a freaking puma. But this is the stuff that makes me feel like everything's freaking going to pop. Even to this day, I have no idea what happened or how the heck it could have. How does time do this? Is there a freaking wormhole in my shower? Am I Morpheus? So, time is a strange mistress who happens not to be linear, which we attribute to it. I don't have a single cellular freaking clue how I lived a 7-minute, or how I fast forwarded 7 minutes one direction, or whatever the heck happened. I'm scared. Back in 2017, I lived in Colorado, originally from New Mexico, and I would frequently take road trips there to see my family. On this specific occasion, I was on my way back and I got pulled over for going 87 in a 65. And for the record, I drive extremely safe now. The police officer gave me a couple of options, one of which was to attend a court date versus an expensive ticket. I chose the court date because I was going to venture back soon anyway. So fast forward a couple of months to September of that year. I'm staying at my dad's, and mind you, I was at this phase of my life an irresponsible procrastinator. My dad lived 6 minutes away from the courthouse. The night before, we read the paperwork and confirmed that my very last opportunity to show up in court would be the next day, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The next day, I wake up at 7:55 a.m. and start getting my paperwork together, when I realise it says I need to check in by 8 a.m. or I could be thrown in jail for failure to appear. I panicked and left the house within 3 minutes of waking up, only to arrive at the courthouse by 8:07. Naturally, I braced myself for the worst. I walk in and start turning my phone off and confirmed I was indeed tardy. I got in the line for security and I get a time-stamped card and sit down. Here's where it gets weird. I looked down about 5 minutes after sitting to see the card was time-stamped 7:52 a.m. I felt a rush of relief come over me, and since it's a small courthouse, I was out within 10 minutes. I get outside and turn my phone on, which is synced to the specific time zone, and it reads 8:08 a.m. I know my eyes did not fail me when I checked the clocks before going in. I dodged a bullet, and for that, I thank the Matrix for glitching and teaching me to be a responsible adult from that point forward. I had a friend drive panicked to school at 6:55 a.m, swearing up and down on her life that I called her asking where she was and why she was late for class, yelling that we have finals. But we clearly don't have any classes together, and I don't see her in the mornings. And my phone had died the previous night after I watched Netflix all night, and I only charged it at school. And also her phone had no recent calls. So, I don't know what the hell was going on.